So, I just wanted to start by introducing myself, because I know some of you, but not all of you. So my name is Michael Atkins, or Anja is the spiritual name given by my teachers. And that was at the Sivananda ashram in Valmorai. So I study a school of yoga called Sivananda Yoga, which is named after Swami Sivananda, who you can see here. And Swami Sivananda sent many disciples to the West, one of whom was Swami Vishnudevananda. And I'm going to be reading out of this book. And another one is Swami Jyotirmayananda. And he's still living in Florida. You can visit him. He's 94 and quite spry and amazing person to visit if you're down in Florida. So I'll be using some of their commentaries as well as Swami Sivananda. So it's a very traditional school of yoga that I was brought up in my yoga life. And from sticking with the traditional roots, we can find that it's very applicable as well to our daily and modern life. So what is Raja Yoga, and why are we studying the Raja Yoga Sutras? So Raja Yoga is the yoga of the mind. So it leads us to peace of mind. And that's what we just practiced. It's the yoga of meditation. And so we just sat now for 10 or 15 minutes. Did anybody achieve perfect peace of mind? Oh, Kevin, did you not? Well, not yet. Okay, so it's not so easy, right, to still the mind, to find peace of mind. So luckily we have these beautiful texts that teach us all about our mind and how the mind works. What are the obstacles to peace of mind? Why do these thoughts keep coming up? And how do we kind of work with the thoughts and work with the emotions? And that's what this is going to teach us. And this is one form of yoga. It's important to know there are actually 4 main paths of yoga. So we're going to focus in these lectures on the yoga of the mind. But there's also Bhakti yoga, which is a yoga of the heart, yoga of devotion. And this is singing mantras, devotional practices that gets us out of the head and into the heart. And it's very complementary. And then we have the karma yoga, the yoga of action. So that's the attitude we can take to our work, right? We try to do our level best, but we let go of the results. That's not an easy practice. So we need to have a very focused mind to be able to let go of the things that aren't working for us. So that's, again, Raja Yoga can help there. And then there's Jnana Yoga, where we just sit still and realize the world doesn't exist. And that's the hardest form of yoga. And again, the Raja Yoga, focusing the mind, learning to think clearly, will help there as well. So in the Raja Yoga Sutras, this is a series of sutras, means thread. And each thread, each verse is very dense and has quite a lot of information. There are whole books written about even just one of these verses. And we're not going to go into that much depth, but we're going to start exploring, our mind piece by piece. And hopefully I can add some commentary to make it a little bit practical to our daily life. And this text was written more than 2,000 years ago by Patanjali Maharishi. And while he's credited with putting this information together, he didn't come up with it. So this knowledge of yoga and yoga of the mind has been known for much, much, much longer, but it was codified by Patanjali. So it's important to remember he's not the creator, but just someone that put it together to make it easier for us to understand. And as we go through together, each week we'll do 1 or 2 or 3 verses. Maybe tonight we won't even get to number 2, but let's see what happens. So we'll take a look at verse 1, and I'll always read out the verse and then talk about it a little bit. If you happen to have a copy of the Raja Yoga Sutras, that's nice to have, but it's not necessary. There are many, many, many copies. I do recommend getting one with commentary. And then it's nice to have different ways to look at the same sutra. That's going to bring some more understanding. So let's dive right in with the first sutra. And Swami Sivananda, this one I know in Sanskrit, Atta Yoga Nusasanam. And this doesn't, the Atta isn't Hatha like Hatha Yoga, it's Atta, which means now. And it says now yoga is explained, or now an exposition of Raja Yoga will be given. The yoga of the mind is going to be told to us now. So Swami Sivananda says, yoga means union or yoke. So yoke, it's to pull together. So what are we uniting? Yoga is a method by which the individual soul becomes united with the Supreme Soul. So that's the ultimate goal of yoga, that our individual self becomes united with the Supreme. So what does that really mean? It says that inside us is divinity, is divine, is perfection, is bliss. It's just sometimes hard to see, yeah? And maybe after a nice relaxation at the end of a yoga class, we feel a little bit more connected, a little bit more peaceful. Maybe it happens when we're downhill skiing and we're not thinking about anything, right? Other than focus on what we're doing, the mind becomes still, we feel good. That's why we like to do these activities. They all focus the mind. And when the mind is focused, it stops and we connect with what's underneath. And the yogis call that the self. And that self feels good when we connect to it. And also the yoga teaches us the individual self is the same as the universal self. So what some people call God or higher consciousness, that resides within all of us. And what's between us and that connection? It's the turbulence of the mind. So the yoga practice in Raja Yoga is to still the mind so we can connect to ourself. Now that's a pretty big explanation, but what could that mean a little bit more practically? When the mind is busy and running all over the place, it's kind of hard to see clearly, right? And when we're not seeing clearly, we make decisions that might not be helpful to us. So the question could be, have you ever made a good decision when you're angry? Probably not. But do you ever make decisions when you're angry? Possibly. So why? And this practice will teach us how to notice our state of mind. So we say, oh, I'm feeling a little angry now. Maybe I'm going to take a breath before I speak to my partner, before I react to that person that, cut me off on Highway 50 here in Quebec. So that happens all the time, right? And the other question is not just when we're angry, but do you ever make good decisions when you're happy? The decisions can also be kind of tainted by our state of mind, even when we're happy. The example I always use when there's a big sale on Amazon, suddenly you need all these things that you never really needed, right? And then we buy them because they're on sale, but is that actually a good decision? So the Raja Yoga teaches us to observe these thoughts in the mind, to notice our state of mind and say, is this the time to make a decision? Maybe I calm the mind first. So that's kind of the practical application. And as we start making healthier decisions for ourselves, we start to feel better in life. And that's the same as being connected to self or connected to divine. It's just feeling good. And when people ask me, why do I practice yoga? I say, well, it makes me feel good. And that's enough, isn't it? So back to the first verse. Yoga is a method by which the individual soul becomes united with the Supreme Soul, the reality that underlies this universe. Yoga also is defined as an effort to separate the reality from the apparent. So to see what's real as opposed to what we think is real. And that can do a lot with our wants and desires, right? When I get this, I will be happy. Have you ever thought like that? When this happens, when I get on this vacation, I will be happy. You ever been on vacation? Yes, hopefully. If not, you should go right now. At the end of the lecture. So, when this happens, I'll be happy. Then we get on vacation, and are we happy? Maybe for a few minutes, and then what happens? Oh, did I leave the water on? Did I turn off the stove? What's happening at the office, right? Wherever we go, that mind comes with us. And if the mind can't be content here, it's not going to be content there either. And then we're on vacation, but now I need to get an upgrade to my hotel room, right? I need to get another level. Then I'll be happy. Oh, now I need the private jacuzzi. So we keep looking for more and more and more, but the happiness doesn't always come. So that's the apparent world. And the yogis say happiness comes in Raja Yoga through calming or stilling the mind. And it's through the practice we just did together, through that meditation practice. And the meditation we're going to follow, or practice each week before we have the talk, it comes right from the Raja Yoga Sutra. So it's very applicable. This style of japa meditation, repeating of mantra, is going to make a lot of sense as we continue onwards. So that is Sutra 1. And now we'll look at Sutra number 2. I don't even need the book for this one. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. And a very easy way to memorize this is you get it on a t-shirt. And that's how I learned this. So it's very popular. Sutra number 2, because it tells us exactly how to have peace of mind. So yoga, Chitta vritti, that's the thought waves of the mind, and nirodha means to stop them. So all we have to do is stop the thought waves, stop the turbulence in the mind, and we will be happy. So that's the teaching. So Patanjali, when he wrote this, he said, now yoga is explained. Here's the explanation. Stop your mind. And that was enough for him. But his students said, well, we need a little bit more. And then you have more sutras come out. And then they say, that's not enough. And he gives another explanation. And then they say, that's not enough. And then we get to the 8 limbs of yoga that we'll see later on towards the end of chapter 2. So it's kind of like a dialogue between student and teacher. And as we have this dialogue, we learn more and more about the mind. So let's look at some of the commentary for Sutra number 2. Yoga is restraining the activities of the mind. The mind is neither visible nor tangible. It exists not in the physical body, as does the brain, but in the astral body. Its magnitude cannot be measured, for it carries all feelings, ideas, and impressions from this life and previous lives, as well as intuitive knowledge of what is to come. It is the mind and nothing else that must be corralled and controlled in order to achieve true peace of union. So the nice explanation in the yoga philosophy is often that if you're the chariot driver, your mind is the horses. And we ask the question, who is in control? So is it the horses pulling the chariot or the driver telling the horses where to go? So what's the answer? It can be a bit of both, right? Some days we're in control, some days the mind is in control. And in the Bhagavad Gita, that'll be our next lecture series, I think, in a couple of years. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says the mind can be our best friend or our worst enemy. So when we're in control, the mind is working for us, it's our best friend. The mind is a very powerful tool. It can figure out how to do a Sudoku puzzle. It can figure out how to drive to the ashram. It can figure out the best and most efficient way to do your job, to give you more free time for your passions. And it can help us be creative in our passions, whatever they may be. But the mind can also be our worst enemy when the mind starts to be doubting all the time. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. Or I'm better than everybody. That's another way the mind can go. So the mind can fluctuate back and forth and back and forth. And when we're living through the mind, when we think that the mind is real, then we get kind of stuck in the polar play of the mind. And the yogis call that the play of opposites. We're pulled by our likes and our dislikes. We run to what we like and we run away from what we don't like. But with a little bit of discipline for the mind, sometimes we see that what we like, it's not always good for us. So we had that sale on Amazon. We can like, what else do we like that might not be good for us? French fries? Too many French fries. A few French fries are good for us, but too many, right? But the mind says, oh, I'll have that larger size, right? But then, not so good. And then what do we think is not good for us? So someone wrote chocolate cake. Yes, very good. But on your birthday, the calories don't count. So that's good. But that's the truth. So I'm very blessed to have my mom here with us tonight. And so she makes this super chocolate cake. But when I have too much, it doesn't feel good. So this is where the mind cannot see clearly. And then things that we don't like might actually be good for us, like halasana, the plow pose. That's a hard one to like at first. One of those yoga poses, legs behind the head, you can't breathe. But actually, it's very beautiful, but it takes some time to appreciate. And the mind says, no, no, no. I know when I did teacher training at the ashram, and some of you have done this same training, there's an asana called shalabhasana, the locust. You lay on your belly, you try to lift your legs over your head. And you do that twice a day for 30 days. And you know what happens right at that time of shalabhasana? 4 or 5 people always suddenly have to go to the bathroom and they leave the class. This happens week after week after week, day after day after day, rather. And it's so funny because we're like, oh, I don't like this. But that asana, it releases our lower back. And that's where we're holding lots of tension, lots of emotions for lots of us. So it's what we don't like at first. It's very hard, but the release is actually really nice. So sometimes we're resisting what's good for us. And maybe there's an example you can think of for yourself. What do you tend to resist that might actually be good for you? And that's going to be our homework for this week, is to observe what do I tend to run to that might not actually nourish me, and what do I kind of resist that might actually nourish me. So we can observe how the mind kind of plays a game. But if we can be in charge of the horse there, right? Not let the mind pull us, but ask that question. Is this actually something that will nourish me? Maybe I can taste it a little bit. Is this actually something that is not nourishing me? Maybe I can taste it a little bit less. So why don't we think of just one thing, either to do a little more of or a little bit less of this coming week. So sit up nice and tall and see what comes to mind, and don't resist it. If something comes up, then we say, no, not that. That's too hard. But if it came up, maybe that's the one. And again, you don't have to go to 100%. Maybe 10%. 10% more or 10% less. And that's enough to start to build some faith in the practice. So take a moment to think of that for this week. So I myself, I'm going to have 10% less snacks. That's something I'm working on. And saying it out loud is very powerful. So now the question is, how do we do this? And the answer is next week. No, we'll go a little bit with the answer. Is what we've been doing, that meditation practice. Coming back to the breath before we make the decision, right? We see the cake, we want the cake, but we take a breath. We see the ice cream. Cake and ice cream together, though, is very good. But we see it and we say, is this going to nourish me right now? And just asking the question. And then we eat it anyways, right? For another week. But we started asking the question, and that's progress. So it's not to be hard on ourselves. Same thing, thoughts in the mind. We take a breath. We see the thought. I'm feeling that way. And then I can notice how I'm feeling. And that is the practice, right? Observe the thought without attaching to it. And then refocus. And the thought comes, we observe, we refocus, observe, refocus. And that habit comes sooner. And the sooner we see the thought, the easier it is to stop it before it snowballs. Because once we really start planning and how am I going to, bake that cake and what's it going to smell like, then it's harder to stop. But if that first thought of I want cake, and we say, I had cake yesterday, I had cake this morning, I'm not going to have it tonight, then we can stop it right there, right? And that's the practice. So we'll leave it here for tonight. We'll just close with the mantra Om 3 times and Shanti 3 times, which means peace. So sit up tall. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you. May Gurus who can respond with Jai. Guru Swami Sivananda Maharaj ki Jai. Hari Om Tat Sat.